mattress was so mud. She was covered up with a large house coat. She was laying face down on the bed. I touched her and her body was cold, so I knew she was dead.
I went in and carried my daughter's body out. I was gonna take her to the hospital because I felt she's still alive.
These horrific murders were committed by school-going kids out of sheer jealousy. We've all felt jealous at some point in our lives, that little pang when someone gets something we want. While most of us can shake it off, for some, it doesn't just go away. It builds, and eventually, it can drive them to do things they'd never imagine. In this video, we're going to take a look at some really disturbing stories of kids who let their jealousy take a deadly turn. These weren't just random outbursts of anger. These were cold, calculated actions against people they felt had taken what they wanted, whether it was love, attention, success, or even a sense of power. From spitefully attacking a roommate to betraying their own siblings, these kids seemed like any other, trusted by parents, teachers, and friends. But beneath the surface, resentment was building up until it exploded in ways no one could have expected. What pushes a child to commit such horrifying acts? And how does something as ordinary as jealousy twist into something so dark and destructive? Let's dive into these unsettling stories and find out. Nicole Rice. Anita Knutson was an 18-year-old college student at Minot State University in North Dakota. Her family described her as a beautiful, charismatic, and joyful person who made friends very easily. She was also super hardworking and ambitious, and was even working 2 jobs to pay her way through college. She hoped to become an elementary school teacher, but sadly, her life would be brutally cut short before she even got a chance to achieve her dreams. In June 2007, Anita's family started to worry when they couldn't get a hold of her. The last time anyone heard from her was on the evening of Friday, June 1st. She had called her mom, Sharon, after her shift at Fairfield Inn, saying she was heading back to her off-campus apartment. But after that, nothing. The entire weekend went by without a single call or text from Anita. Her family kept trying to reach her, but there was no response. This was completely out of character for her, given how close she was to her family. By Monday, June 4th, panic had set in. Her dad, Gordon, decided to drive to her apartment to see what was going on, and the moment he got there, his gut told him something was wrong. Anita's car was parked outside, but the apartment door was locked, and no one answered when he knocked. Desperate, Gordon went to the apartment manager and got them to unlock the door, and as soon as it opened, he rushed in. At first, it looked like Anita was peacefully asleep in her bed, but when he got closer, his worst fears were confirmed.
The mattress was soaked with mud. She was covered up with a large house coat. She was laying face down on the bed. I touched her and her body was cold, so I knew she was dead.
As the hotel manager called 911, Gordon picked up the phone to break the devastating news to his wife. And you can only imagine just how heartbreaking that moment must have been. But what made the tragedy even worse was knowing that Anita's death wasn't peaceful or natural. She had been brutally murdered. Anita had been jabbed multiple times with a pocket knife, which was discovered at the foot of her bed. While the screen on her bedroom window had been cut open, nothing appeared to have been stolen. Police quickly launched a homicide investigation, but it wasn't going to be an easy case to crack. If Anita had been a random target, there likely would have been signs of robbery or assault, but there wasn't, leading police to believe this was a deliberate targeted attack. And the big question was, why Anita? She was a kind, friendly young woman with no known enemies. Naturally, the first place investigators looked was Anita's love life. While she wasn't actively dating at the time, her family mentioned one name, Tyler Schmaltz, her high school prom date. After prom, Anita had told her family that Tyler became unusually persistent, trying to get her to go out with him. She wasn't interested, but Tyler didn't take no for an answer and kept pushing it. Things got even creepier when Tyler followed Anita to college and moved into the same apartment complex as her. That definitely raised some red flags, and police knew they had to question Tyler. And as it turned out, that wasn't hard, as Tyler had been lurking around the crime scene, claiming he was just looking for answers about Anita's murder. Tyler denied having anything to do with the crime, claiming Anita was his best friend. Although his behavior towards Anita was considered weird and obsessive, there was no evidence to connect him to the murder, so he was eventually cleared as a suspect. Police then started looking into other potential suspects, like the apartment maintenance man, some temporary workers roofing the building, and even a jogger spotted in the area. But none of these leads went anywhere. Even Anita's phone and computer records turned up nothing. Police did collect DNA samples from everyone they questioned, but still, nothing. Then, a new lead surfaced. Police learned that Anita had been having problems with her roommate, Nicole Rice. The two didn't get along because Nicole would often bring random male friends over to the apartment without warning Anita, and leaving them there even when she wasn't home. Anita Anita felt unsafe and asked Nicole to stop, but Nicole brushed her off, saying Anita had no right to tell her how to live her life. Things got so tense between them that it even escalated into a physical fight. By May 2007, Anita had started making plans to move out of the apartment, but tragically, she never got the chance. When police learned about the tension between the two, they brought Nicole in for questioning, but Nicole had a solid alibi. She claimed she'd spent the entire weekend at her parents' house on the other side of town. With nothing concrete to hold her on, investigators collected a DNA swab and let her go. And after that, the case went cold. For years, there were no new leads to go on, but Anita's family never gave up. They kept pushing for answers, even as they endured another heartbreaking loss. In 2013, Anita's brother Daniel, who had been extremely close to her, took his own life. Losing Anita in such a brutal way had devastated him, and the grief weighed on him until he couldn't carry it anymore. For the Knutson family, it felt like they had lost 2 children when Anita was murdered. Then, in the fall of 2021, the case got new life. An American crime show called The Justice took on Anita's story, determined to solve the mystery surrounding her death. And in March 2022, police announced that Nicole Rice, Anita's former roommate, was arrested for her murder.
Now, after nearly 15 years of investigating and following up on leads, and the suspect is in custody. At about 3:25 p.m., 34-year-old Nicole Rice was arrested for murder and taken to Ward County Jail. Although most of the detectives who worked the original scene and investigation have retired, we have not forgotten about this case.
At Nicole's hearing, prosecutors laid out a compelling case against her. They argued that Nicole was the only person with both the motive and the means to harm Anita. As her roommate, Nicole had easy access to the apartment, and their relationship had been rocky for months. Friends had told investigators that Nicole was extremely jealous of Anita and would frequently call her insulting names. Prosecutors also uncovered text messages between the two that backed up these claims. In the month leading up to her death, Anita had even asked her dad to install a lock on her bedroom door because she didn't feel safe in her own apartment. Investigators believe Anita was killed on June 2nd or 3rd, 2007. While Nicole claimed she wasn't in town that weekend, a witness reported seeing her at a bar about 45 minutes from Minot on June 2nd. According to the witness, Nicole said she planned to stop by the apartment to grab some clothes.
The investigation, Nicole's statements have been inconsistent from the start. They've changed drastically from not seeing Anita to seeing Anita to not being in Minot all of the weekend to now coming back to Minot on Saturday night after she left the hospital.
But the most damning piece of evidence came from one of Nicole's ex-boyfriends. He told police that Nicole had confessed to the murder during a drunken outburst. The two had attended a party where Anita's death came up in conversation. Nicole, reportedly very drunk, told him, "I did it," but when he later confronted her about it sober, she became angry and refused to talk about it. Another key piece of the state's case revolves around DNA evidence from a pocket knife found at the scene. The sample was too small to run through the law enforcement database, but it could still be tested side by side with DNA from potential suspects. After testing multiple individuals, Nicole was the only one who couldn't be excluded as a match.
All of the male profiles that were sent have been able to be excluded from the profiles developed from the knife. The only profile that cannot be excluded or DNA sample that has been submitted is Nicole's.
Despite maintaining her innocence, the evidence against Nicole was enough for a judge to find probable cause, and the case was sent to trial. The trial was originally scheduled for November 2022, but Nicole's defense team has repeatedly delayed it. The latest date was set for January 6th, but so far, nothing has moved forward. Nicole remains out on bond, and Anita's family is still waiting for justice. But as shocking as this story is, let's shift to another deeply disturbing case involving an 11-year-old girl who did the unthinkable after an online spat with a classmate. The Nevada Tan murder. This chilling crime took place on June 1st, 2004, at an elementary school in Sasebo, Japan. It involved 2 young girls, 12-year-old Satomi Mitarai and 11-year-old Natsumi Tsuji, who were said to be close friends. They shared many classes and even played together on the school basketball team. But beneath the surface, tension was building. Just days before the tragedy, a feud erupted between the two. Back in 2004, before social media as we know it existed, kids used online message boards to chat after school. They were simple, but they got the job done. And sometimes, just like social media, they became breeding grounds for drama. On one of these boards, Satomi posted some pretty cruel comments about Natsumi, mocking her weight and calling her a teacher's pet. Now, kids argue and say mean things all the time, and it's usually not a big deal. But in this case, what happened next left the entire country in shock. That morning started like any other. Everything seemed normal as the girls arrived at school and went about their day. But what no one knew was that Natsumi had a chilling secret hidden in her pocket, a box cutter. The first part of the morning was uneventful. Both girls attended their classes, and nothing seemed out of the ordinary. But during lunch break, Natsumi asked Satomi to join her in an empty classroom. Once they were alone, Natsumi snapped. She lunged at Satomi and attacked her, jabbing her multiple times with the box cutter before slicing her throat. After the brutal attack, Natsumi didn't run. She stood over Satomi and watched as her former friend bled out on the classroom floor. Once Satomi stopped breathing, Natsumi coldly kicked her in the head to make sure she was gone. Then, still holding the red-stained box cutter, Natsumi left the room and walked back to her classmates, who were still eating lunch. When everyone saw the red-soaked clothes, they assumed she'd hurt herself. But then Natsumi said something that stopped them cold. "This isn't my blood." The teacher rushed to the empty classroom, only to discover the horrifying scene of Satomi lying face down on the floor, lifeless. The police were called immediately. When officers arrived, they found that Natsumi had drawn the curtains to the room before luring Satomi inside, showing just how planned and heartless her actions were. Natsumi was taken into custody, where she quickly confessed, saying, "I have done a bad thing. I am sorry. I am sorry." She spent the night at the station, crying non-stop, refusing to eat or drink. At first, she didn't give any reason for what she did, but later, she admitted that it all started from an argument online, explaining, "She wrote something bad about my appearance several times on the net a few days before the incident. I didn't like that, so I called her to a study room and slashed her neck after getting her to sit on a chair." She even told investigators that she had planned the murder 4 days earlier and had been inspired to use a paper cutter after seeing the method used in a TV drama. News of the murder sent shockwaves through Japan as people struggled to understand how an 11-year-old could commit such a brutal act. Because of her age, Natsumi's identity was kept hidden, and she was only known as Girl A. In the months before Natsumi's trial, investigators uncovered disturbing details about her life. While on the surface, Natsumi seemed like a normal and well-adjusted girl, she had a dark fascination with violent media. There were also troubling incidents in her past, including fights and an alarming moment when she brought a sharp object to school just a month before the tragedy. The case sparked debates about internet influence and how parents can monitor their children. Some speculated Natsumi might have struggled with internet addiction or social withdrawal, though no diagnosis was confirmed. On September 15, 2004, a family court sentenced Natsumi to 2 years in an institution, but was extended by 2 more in 2006, after being deemed a significant danger to society. She was released in 2013 under a new identity, and her family relocated to an undisclosed location. But this story doesn't end there. The public became obsessed with her, nicknaming her Nevada Tan, because of a photo where she was seen wearing a University of Nevada sweatshirt. Rumors swirled that she had worn the sweatshirt during the attack, fueling a bizarre trend online. Fan art and comics popped up everywhere, turning her into this cartoonish, chibi-style character covered in blood. The hype got so out of hand that the University of Nevada actually had to stop selling the sweatshirt for a while. To this day, Nevada Tan remains a controversial figure, raising unsettling questions about society's fascination with sensationalized crime and its portrayal in the media. Now, let's look at another equally disturbing case involving a young boy whose insane jealousy led him to do the unthinkable against his baby sister. Isaiah Fowler. On April 27, 2013, 12-year-old Isaiah Fowler was home alone with his 8-year-old sister Layla, while the rest of their family went to a Little League baseball game. But around noon, California police received a chilling call from Isaiah's stepmom, Crystal Walters, reporting a possible intruder in their home.
My children are at home alone, and a man just ran out of my house. My older son was in the bathroom, and my daughter started screaming. Okay. He came out, there was a man inside of my house. I need an officer there.
Crystal was relaying what Isaiah had told her, and as she and her husband rushed home, the dispatcher called Isaiah to check if he and his sister were okay. Isaiah repeated the story he told his stepmom, saying that he was in the bathroom when he heard a door slam and someone banging on the door. When he came out, he said he saw a tall man with long gray hair running out the back door. According to Isaiah, the man had attacked Layla, stabbing her multiple times. Crystal and her husband, Barney, arrived home before the police. They found Isaiah sitting in the living room, holding a phone in one hand and a baseball bat in the other. Tragically, Layla was found unconscious on her bedroom floor with a bloody cut on her forehead and multiple knife wounds. She was rushed to the hospital, but despite doctors' efforts, she passed away. An autopsy later revealed she had suffered over 70 knife wounds to her chest. Police wasted no time launching an investigation, focusing on Isaiah's story of an intruder, but every lead turned into a dead end. The house showed no signs of a break-in or robbery. Investigators were left with nothing but the word of a 12-year-old boy.
The house where this all happened is empty and silent tonight. A setback for detectives today, though, as they tried to create a composite sketch of the suspect from a second person who said they saw that suspect running from the scene.
During the composite sketch meeting, the witness recanted her previous statements and her identification of the man she saw running away.
As part of the investigation, they collected several knives from the home, hoping to find the weapon used in the crime. At this point, they didn't suspect Isaiah. He was just a witness. But as they interviewed him multiple times, his story started to shift, and the inconsistencies raised red flags. Initially, Isaiah said the intruder was banging on the bathroom door and yelling. Later, he claimed the man spoke, saying, "Hey, I know you're in there. Come out," before he heard Layla scream. He described opening the bathroom door, seeing the man flee, and following him. But then he said he realized Layla might need help, so he turned back, grabbed a knife from the kitchen, and ran to her room. According to Isaiah, he found her on the floor, bleeding. He claimed he dropped the knife, then picked it up again, before returning to the kitchen and calling his stepmother. These new details made detectives suspicious. Why hadn't he mentioned this before? In another version, he said he never even went into Layla's room. He just stood at the door. That didn't add up because officers saw red stains on Isaiah's forearm that day, and in his bedroom, they also found a shirt with bloodstains. Then there was the steak knife they believed was the murder weapon, washed clean but still carrying faint traces of human blood. The idea of an intruder washing the weapon and returning it to the drawer made no sense. Slowly, the focus of the investigation began to shift. Despite insisting he was innocent and sticking to his story, Isaiah was arrested and charged with second-degree murder. The news shocked everyone. How could a 12-year-old boy commit such a gruesome act? Isaiah's parents were horrified, adamant their son wasn't capable of harming his sister.
I was the first one in that house. I saw his demeanor. I've seen the way he carried himself the 2 weeks he was out after that. I don't think he did it.
During the trial, the prosecution painted a chilling picture. They argued Isaiah killed his sister, cleaned up, and waited nearly an hour before calling for help. They pointed out how calm he sounded on the 911 call, and how he delayed mentioning Layla was hurt. The most harrowing moment came when photos of Layla's injuries were shown in court. A pathologist described how her wounds seemed more like deliberate small jabs meant to intimidate before the final blows. The idea that an intruder could inflict these injuries in such a short time didn't hold up. Forensics revealed troubling details: traces of blood at the kitchen sink, a strangely clean bedroom, and no bloody footprints leading from Layla's bunk bed to where her body was found on the floor. Investigators believed she had been carried or thrown. The defense fought back, calling the investigation sloppy and rushed. They argued Isaiah had no motive and questioned how a 12-year-old could stage such a convincing cleanup. Despite their efforts, in October 2015, Isaiah was found guilty and sentenced to 6 years to life in juvenile detention. His family was outraged, insisting the real killer was still out there. They pushed for an appeal, and in 2018, Isaiah was retried, but the outcome didn't change. He was convicted again and sentenced to remain in juvenile detention until he turned 25. During sentencing, the judge delivered a stern statement saying, "There's no doubt you took the life of your sister. You did so viciously, with thought and planning. She was just 8 years old and would have looked to her big brother for protection, not harm." However, in May 2023, at the age of 22, Isaiah was released as a DJJ parolee and is now living as a free man. So, what are your thoughts on these cases? Which one shocked you the most? I'd love to read your take in the comments. And before you leave, don't forget to like this video, hit subscribe, and turn on that bell for notifications. Trust me, you won't want to miss what we've got coming up next.